if you think any alphabet letter organization didn't offend you because of the color of your skin, or your religion, or if you're circumcised, or if you're attracted to skunks or something, then you're out of your mind. These organizations that have acronyms or initials, I forget which one's the correct term of use, but they're there in order to raise money, to foster panic, to encourage censorship, to tell people how to think and how to express themselves. Where was the society back in the 60s and 70s without these, hilarious alphabet soup organizations? Society was, to a certain degree, much more free during the rock and roll era, and people did not look at the country as if it was gripped by a wave of hate. But if you watch any of the TV interviews or their Twitter pages or any of the other public statements of the aiding and abetting defamation league, as I call them, the A&ADL. They call themselves the ADL, but they really do love defamation. They love defaming people who say things that they disagree with. And as somebody who now, okay, so they'll put out statements about hateful rhetoric and whatever, but really all they care about is that people renew their donations and continue to contribute to their campaigns against anti-Semitism or anti-black bigotry or anti-anything, and any they disagree with. Which to campaign against something is fine. To say that you disagree with something is fine. I'm Jewish, and I don't support anti-Jewish bigotry, anti-Semitism, as they call it. But I know that censoring people and telling them that what they can and cannot say is not going to fight those ideas. It's actually going to drive those people underground. And latest episodes of type bullshit perfectly show why, if you're a member of any of these committees that are supposedly representing outfits, organizations, the ADL, there's the SPLC, there's the NACP, any of those organizations, just stay as far away from them as you can. Just associate with your friends and people in your community. If you want, I guess you could form your own group of people to advocate on behalf of whatever beliefs you have. I'd probably recommend that you take, a concealed carry course and start carrying a firearm or something if you really feel you're threatened, or you go to a martial arts class, because these organizations will do absolutely nothing for you. They're a detriment to your rights, to your freedom of expression, to your freedom of thought, and you should absolutely oppose them and try to get lumped in with anything that they're talking about. And why am I doing one of these outbursts again? Because since the summer, I've really published more of the things I've published in the Times of Israel, and now probably on their blog page. Okay, I'm not a writer for them, but I'll post the link to that because it's not up yet. So I'm posting this later. But more of the statements that they make just show how useless and incompetent the group is, especially under their leader, John Greenblatt, who is a former Obama administration official. The ADL reacted to this revelation of a meeting where Democratic Party Deputy Chair Louis Farrakhan, he was at a dinner and private meeting with the president of Iran and Louis Farrakhan. Now, before I get to that issue, let me discuss something else that happened. Because of the whole immigration debate, okay, I'm sorry for this tangent, but because of the whole immigration debate, and I have this in my blog post, a coalition of 17 Jewish organizations issued an open letter condemning White House aide, senior policy advisor Stephen Miller, and claiming he's a bigot, that he's an anti-immigrant extremist and far righter, saying that his beliefs are inconsistent with Jewish values. Well, how would you know? First of all, in your statement, you didn't make mention of the fact that Miller himself is Jewish, so obviously you don't represent his beliefs, and you didn't make it apparent that he's Jewish too. And obviously there are people out there. There's people who watch the show, or this channel. There's me. There's people around think Stephen Miller has fantastic ideas, and we support we support him. And that doesn't mean we hate immigrants. We have a different view on the way the immigration policy should be in this country. It should be in order to minimize the amount of expenditure by the government on immigration. But these 17 groups decided to issue a statement where they condemn him and they urge the White House to let him go, because at this moment there's this turmoil in the White House over John Kelly and the firing of a guy for domestic violence allegations that were from 20 years ago or so. Well, these people who are in the 17 organizations, if you look through their records, they're people, they don't represent Judaism. And I would hazard to say that they hardly represent Jewish people. You look at some of these organizations. One of them is the Jews for Racial and Economic Justice, and they have this leader. I think she's not the leader anymore, but you can see her. This is Dov Kent, or Dov Kent. You can see my cursor. She's in this weird photo. So she appears here on the JFREG website. Okay, you see here, next to the left and the new fight against anti-Semitism. And this is a woman who, let me see if I can find it. Hold on. You can see this is somebody who has previously made appearances with none other than the Rita Repulsa herself, Linda Sarsour. And she says, I march with Linda because Sarsour fights for my Jewish community and all with fierce love. You come for her, you come for us all. Well, I want to remind Dov Kent that Linda Sarsour has a record going back to the early 2000s of issuing statements that are, forget anti-Semitism. That's what I hate about it. People, a lot of the Jewish quote-unquote conservatives, they'll only condemn bigotry against minorities and anti-Semitism. But I'm going further. I'm saying if you're somebody who has anti-white statements, Linda Sarsour earlier this week claimed that a white male like Chuck Schumer shouldn't represent all these minority people. That's not how is that then therefore why would Hillary Clinton, who she endorsed during the 2016 election, represent minority people? Why would Bernie Sanders represent minority people? He's a white guy. I don't care that he's Jewish. He's pretty white. There's and I have attached here this whole list of things that she said, including these theories that she proposes, including one that there's ones that I do believe that Malcolm X was assassinated with knowledge of the government, but there's other ones where she says, I want to give you just some examples that really give me a hard time to put a good face to the American government, which include infiltration of mosques, which has been an issue for us in our community. Why shouldn't they infiltrate the mosques when you've had people? First of all, there were mosques that helped harbor the terrorists who staged the 1993 World Trade Center attacks, and later 9/11. So why shouldn't they be infiltrated? So this is somebody who she has a She said this following Saddam Hussein's death. Sarsour said many Palestinians viewed Hussein as a hero because he steadfastly supported Palestinians in their struggle against Israel. She and other Palestinian New Yorkers felt humiliated by the way Hussein was caught and shown disheveled and pathetic looking on international television. And she said, I think he's done a lot of things he shouldn't have done, but I was hurt. My Arab pride was hurt. And Palestinians are under so much oppression, and no other Arab country ever helped them. No other Arab country has ever helped them. They contribute money to the Palestinians every year, all of the Arab states. So what the fuck is she talking about? This is Linda Sarsour, like everybody else I'm talking to about, and I don't know if I'm talking to them, but talking about in this video, are people that have an almost strange relation to the truth. They're estranged to the truth because if they spoke the truth, they wouldn't be able to make any statements, and their own communities wouldn't view them as symbols. They survive basically on the ignorance of their own followers. That's what they accuse us of. So, and that quote was from Newsday, which is a Long Island daily newspaper. So this isn't Ramon making it up. This isn't the ADL making it up, who I don't associate with. This isn't the Republican Party making it up, who I don't associate with. It's not the Daily Caller. It's Newsday. It's Newsday, okay? So any liberals out there, if you think that Linda Sarsour is some sort of spokesperson against anti-Semitism, she defended the memory of a guy who, you know, Saddam Hussein. Yes, I'm against the Iraq War. I was probably 17 at the time, so I wasn't really politically active. But she defended the memory of of Saddam, who is the person who rained Scud missiles on Israel and by extension Palestine, because by her own definition, they're the same country and the same, you know, the Palestinians live there along with the Israelis. So he basically bombed both of those countries. But she says that he was the only person who ever helped the Palestinians. So this Dove Kent is a moron. This Dove Kent should really, when you pick your friends, there's that expression. You can pick your friends and you can pick your nose, but you can't pick your friend's nose. And people think of it as a joke. But you know, I talk to people who are extremists. I talk to, for example, black supremacists, and I've talked to white nationalists and extremists. And I'm willing to talk to them, but that doesn't mean that I'm standing shoulder to shoulder with them like Dove Kent does in this photo, the one that I showed you. This is a woman, so she's one of the people who fronts one of the organizations. She's a former leader, but she still makes statements on behalf of it. That is part of this letter against Stephen Miller. She's condemning Steve Miller for inflammatory rhetoric while standing with Sarsour and the other organizations are really kind of a joke. And I go into that in the blog post, but we'll gloss over that for now. But they include the pro-Palestine Jewish lobbying group J Street, which is actually, I think, on their campus. In their campus organization, they're led by a Pakistani Muslim woman, not a Jew. So these organizations, they claim to represent the Jewish community, but they don't represent it. And I'm speaking now. Yes, this video is more about the Jewish activism community, but it could just as easily be about the Palestinian activist community. It could just as easily be about the black activist community. And even if you disagree with my politics, you should know that if you have an alphabet soup organization that claims to support your community, don't trust them. Don't trust them. Trust yourself. Trust your own opinions, because they're not going to actually stand with you when you actually have an issue that you want to deal with. They're just going to use it to raise money and to deceive people and to deceive members, in fact. So after that, you know, I do go pretty far into that. You know, there's a National Coalition of Jewish Women, which was the front group for this statement and everything. Yeah, they issued this statement calling for the resignation of Miller suddenly in the middle of nowhere during the White House negotiations with Congress over DACA when they have already proposed a plan to create a path for citizenship, and now they want Stephen Miller fired. Well, if Stephen Miller needs to be fired, how is it that there is already a path to citizenship on the table, and he's still in the White House? Why is this such a pressing issue for them? Well, the answer is that they need to have somebody's scalp nailed against the wall. Sorry, Elizabeth Warren, for using the metaphor, but they need somebody to fall in order to show that they've accomplished something, because the Democratic Party's accomplished nothing. They've accomplished what they've accomplished is to bring some concessions from the Republicans that they won't accept. And that's one of the reasons I'm not a Republican. I think some of these concessions are a joke. So again, you should disassociate yourself from any organization that claims to represent you, and that includes both political parties too. I'm sorry to say that for all my so-called conservative Republican friends, but your party doesn't represent you. So back again to Keith Ellison and Louis Farrakhan and Barack Obama. So I wrote here that notably missing in the Daily Kos article, which is where I found the letter, or the NCJW website, was any mention of two incidents that have been revealed in the past 2 weeks regarding senior officials in the Democratic Party. The first came out on February 7th, when a photographer with the Nation of Islam, Askaria Mohammed, their newspaper, The Final Call, revealed that he had concealed for 13 years photos of the 2005 meeting of then Senator Barack Obama with the Congressional Black Caucus, where Nation of Islam minister Louis Farrakhan appeared as a guest. So, once again, Farrakhan, I disagree with virtually, I'd probably say 95% of everything he says. The 5% that he says is really, he's not special for saying it. Clean up your community, self-reliance, or whatever. There's plenty of people who preach that and have nothing to do with all the other crap that he talks about white people being the creation of a mad scientist 6,600 years ago named Yaqub, and he also promotes a lot of the Scientologist treatment. So yeah, I don't like Louis Farrakhan. I'm perfectly fine with people associating with him as long as they take the heat for doing it. Louis Farrakhan enjoys all of the constitutional rights that you or I do, and I don't want him to be policed or harassed. As much as I dislike him, and I do believe he was complicit, like the government, in the murder of Malcolm X, who I think was one of the deeper thinkers of the civil rights movement, whatever you might think of him. Louis Farrakhan has been kind of like this wild elephant. Pardon me finding him an elephant, but the expression means that he's sort of somebody who is a useless supporter. He's useful in Illinois, in Chicago, whatever, and you need votes for a local election. But once you get to a national level, he's like kryptonite for the media, because he said plenty of things over his career, which extends back to the 50s and 60s, I think, that are hateful towards white people, towards Jews, also towards gays. And I'm not a gay rights supporter, but those are things that are unacceptable on the left, unacceptable to, except for the hating white people. They're fine with hating white people, but they typically will make a statement, oh, we condemn homophobia or whatever. Well, this guy, apparently, there was a meeting between Obama, who was then a senator, and Louis Farrakhan and the Congressional Black Caucus, and they hid a photo of it for 13 years, believing in advance that it would help, that it would deter Barack Obama from getting the nomination for the Democratic Party in 2008. They were already thinking back then this would look bad, so they lied. And Obama himself, because of his own more famous controversy with the Reverend Jeremiah Wright in 2008, who himself has said numerous anti-white and other bigoted statements. So when he condemned Jeremiah Wright, he had to say something about Louis Farrakhan because there were allegations that perhaps he might be associated with Farrakhan. So he said, "Well, I condemn Farrakhan and everything he has to do with it," but he never revealed that he'd met with Farrakhan, obviously because he was running for office at the time. So he didn't want to have to deal with something that might have been, you know, uncomfortable for him to talk about. So Obama, since the revelation has come out, hasn't issued any statement on this new discovery, and the only statement on it was from another CBC member, Congressional Black Caucus, Danny Davis, who said that Farrakhan is an outstanding human being. And for those of you that think, okay, I'm kind of paraphrasing from my blog post. Anybody who thinks, oh, it's 2005, grow up, whatever. Well, people are bringing up on a daily basis, the allegations, the domestic violence allegations against, excuse me, that cough's come back with a vengeance, against that Rob Porter in the White House. That happened in the 90s. Okay, he's been divorced twice. Yes, it should be considered a black mark on his record if he was convicted of it, but he wasn't convicted of it. That's a crime, but you have to be convicted of something in order for it to be officially on your record. So that stuff is from the 1990s. There's a Democratic senator, I think his name is Tom Carper or something, from Delaware, who also has admitted to beating his wife back in the 70s. So should he resign? I think he should resign by that standard. So people think that 2005 is ancient history now, but 1995, oh, that's definitely relevant. Well then, so that's difference between associating with Louis Farrakhan and domestic violence. So you might say, oh, that's not really important. Well, I mean, the Democratic Party will always, always, always magnify the associations of people who are on the right wing with anybody who's on the far right, like David Duke, even if they've never met them or never said hello to them or never spoken to them on the phone. That's what happened with the David Duke endorsement during the election. People were saying, oh, Donald Trump, he should disavow stronger, Well, Obama still hasn't disavowed Louis Farrakhan since not revealing that he met him. I don't see any outrage in the media over this. And then you get to the issue of other people who have met Louis Farrakhan who have claimed that they've given up on Louis Farrakhan, but apparently the evidence suggests otherwise. So Keith Ellison was confronted with evidence that he'd worked for Farrakhan in the 90s. I think his name was Keith X in the 90s. And in 2006, when he was running for Congress, he claimed, well, that was during the Million Man March period. I really didn't know anything about Farrakhan's views at the time. And that's the path. I don't know anything about that. Let's reveal then, since Ellison had meetings with Farrakhan, either direct meetings or meetings in other forms with him several times, including a 2013 meeting with the president of Iran, a private dinner at the UN with the president of Iran, where Louis Farrakhan was also a guest. So I think, and this is not just Louis Farrakhan, it's also Congressman Gregory Meeks of New York and Andre Carson of Indiana. So so why am I not giving them a hard time? Well, Meeks and Carson and Danny Davis, who was the other person who spoke about Farrakhan being an outstanding individual, outstanding human being. Well, they've never had to deny that they have current links to Farrakhan or that they've been speaking to him. But Ellison has denied several times. So this is a question of honesty. It's not a question of bigotry. Does this person, Keith Ellison, who went on MSNBC, and I've included the links and whatever. I have the video, but you won't be able to hear it because I'm on the live stream site right now, so you can't hear my audio. But in any case, Keith Ellison said on an interview on Morning Joe, this isn't Breitbart, this isn't the Wall Street Journal, although the Wall Street Journal should be fine. This isn't Daily Caller. This isn't Alex Jones. He said on Morning Joe that this was old, and this was the quotes for him were from 1995, and it was bad reporting, and that he has a 10-year congressional record to refute the claims against him regarding the Farrakhan relationship. Well, then, what happened, and he was running for the head of the DNC at the time, what happened was that Farrakhan himself went on Facebook and said, well, you know, I'm sorry that that Ellison is disavowing and saying these things about me, but I mean, he met me privately in 2015 in a hotel room, and now you have the revelation of the dinner in New York at the UN where Farrakhan was present. Now, maybe he'd wave it off and say, "Oh, I didn't know that Farrakhan was going to be there." But you're at an audience with the president of Iran. Okay, so who do you expect is going to show up? You're not going to have, Derek Jeter show up. You're not going to have, unless I don't know something about him, but you're not going to have, Mick Hedberg show up. I think he's dead, but in any case, you're not going to show up. You're going to have people who support a stronger relationship with Iran. And by the way, that's before the Iran nuclear. So he's meeting with a government in a private dinner at the UN that's under sanction for developing nuclear weapons, and that has for years sponsored terrorism throughout the Middle East. And he's claiming, oh, I didn't know. First of all, he hasn't issued any statement about it. And I'd really like to hear what the excuse is. And for those of you that say, oh, stop beating up on Iran, that's not the point. The point is the dishonesty. Okay, if you want to support Iran, I guess what am I supposed to say to you? That's fine. But this is a person who, you know, he was close to the trough with Bernie Sanders, was one of his top advisors or supporters during the 2016 campaign, sat on the DNC platform committee in 2016. This is a guy who continues to serve as a congressman for Minnesota on behalf of the Democrats. He's a guy who serves as the deputy head of the DNC. And by the way, during that race, Alan Dershowitz, who's another, similar to the ADL, another guy with fake, pathetic gestures, who claims to talk for the Jewish community. He said, oh, if Ellison gets elected to the Democratic Party, I won't be able to associate with them. I'll have to leave. But he also said he'll keep voting for Democrats in races. So what the hell does that even mean? Well, now, I predicted back then, maybe I'll make a video. Maybe I'll put the link for that too, my video from back then. What is he supposed to say? What is Alan Dershowitz supposed to say now that Keith Ellison is the deputy head of the DNC and will probably likely be the next head of the DNC when Tom Perez, the current failure who leads the DNC instead of him, falls in 2018, which he will do. Alan Dershowitz and the ADL are the impotent face of leadership for a community that has plenty of leaders on a local basis. And in fact, people should just be their own leaders. Stop letting other people like Jonathan Greenblatt from the ADL and Alan Dershowitz speak for you. And likewise, again, for the Black community, why should you let Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton or Barack Obama speak for you? No, you should speak for yourself. Okay, even if you disagree with everything I've said in this video, you should probably just speak for yourself and not let these cockroaches speak for you. So anyway, this Keith Ellison will probably be, in my opinion, if he doesn't resign until then, due to some sort of pressure, which I haven't seen any lately, regarding his duplicity, his complete lack of honesty and deception regarding his relationship with Farrakhan, which he could have just admitted it. If he doesn't resign until then, he will probably be the next DNC leader, in my opinion, because Tom Perez is leading the party into the into the shitter. He's not going to lead the party to a victory in 2018, in my opinion. At least maybe they'll make a few gains. I don't think that they're gonna. I personally don't think that they're gonna win both houses of Congress. I have some confidence that they'll lose both houses of Congress, and you know the way that it's going with the Democrats and their speeches about guns and about immigrants and about racism and about white people, I think they might lose even more. So, yeah, Keith Ellison, in my opinion, is the true face of the Democratic Party. He's a liar. He's a racist. He hates white people. He's Muslim. There's nothing wrong with being Muslim, but he's very deceptive about everything that he says. If you want to associate with Louis Farrakhan, you should do it in the open. You shouldn't pretend to the media and to the Minnesota media too. The people who live in his own local community. In fact, he has a large Jewish population in his local community, and they had issues with his association with Farrakhan back in 2008. Now I think they might be eating their crow over voting for him over and over again, but they're not going to vote him out. So if you want to, Keith Ellison should just be honest. He should say, yes, Louis Farrakhan was the person who mentored me in the 90s. Okay, this is not, if anybody's cutting later, I'm talking in the voice of Keith Ellison. He should admit that that Louis Farrakhan mentored him in the 1990s. And then he became interested in politics. And, you know, in 2006, it became inconvenient for him to associate with Louis Farrakhan. So he sees Louis Farrakhan whenever it's convenient for him. So that he should be honest about it that way. He doesn't have to now also he doesn't have to publicly hang out with Louis Farrakhan and proclaim it everywhere. But he shouldn't lie to people and claim that he's this paragon of you know, cleanliness or whatever. He's associated with the Farrakhan movement. He's associated with people worse than I mean, Farrakhan, with in all honesty, is at least honest about what he says. Keith Ellison is probably, and you know, I said in the article in my blog post I made, I trust Louis Farrakhan more than I trust Keith Ellison. So, in summary, you know, all of these alphabet soup organizations that went and condemned this Stephen Miller, who they neglected to say is Jewish, for being, you know, a bigot and whatever, they haven't issued any statements about the Farrakhan Ellison connection. Nothing. They don't care. They don't care. They purport to represent the Jewish community, but they don't care about this because they care about being friends with Linda Sarsour. They love this is something that people don't understand. The motivation of the Jewish left is a social motivation. Socializing, as in socializing in public, you know, going and hanging out with people that you think are cool. It has nothing to do with actual ideas. They're the fakest people that there are. Their ideas are basically a bunch of love one another fluff that has nothing to do with reality, and that's it. So that's it. That's all that I have for you today. Please read the blog if you want to get some more perspective on this. Comment on the video below, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and or dislike the video if you really disagree with me. And we'll see you later.